Roughly 2 years ago, Colorfly released the highly popular CDA-M1, and after that, just recently, they released the CDA-M1P, but most importantly, the successor to M1 is here, Colorfly CDA-M2, which I have in my hand right now. I have been playing with this for quite a while, and let's just have a look first at the price and the configuration for this CDA-M2. So, as you can see here, if you are in Malaysia, you can get this Colorfly CDA-M2 from Star Pickers Audio Library, and listed here in Shopee Malaysia. This M2 is priced at 699 Malaysian ringgit, which is equivalent to US dollar 159 USD, which if you buy it outside of Malaysia. Okay, so let's just have a look at the build and the construction and the configuration for this CDA-M2. Yet again, this is another very popular Cirrus Logic CS43198, which we will be seeing quite a lot this year. And in fact, this is the third dongle that I am reviewing this 2024, and all of them so far has been CS43198. Okay, so if we look at the configuration here, as noted earlier, this is Cirrus Logic CS43198 dual configuration. And I think most importantly, this M2 also comes with discrete power XR2001 amplifier in dual configuration. Okay, and just like many other CS43198, the PCM is rated at 768 kHz 32-bit and capable up to DSD256. And of course, just like many other dongle, in fact if not all, this M2 also comes with this 4.4 mm balance and 3.5 mm single-ended, respectively, each of them offering on the balance side here 4 VRMS, and this 3.5 mm single-ended offering half the power, which is 2 VRMS. And the power rating itself is rated anywhere from 125 milliwatt from the single-ended and 250 milliwatt of power from the balance port. So just remember this. You want the most power out of this dongle, Colorfly CDA-M2, and just like many other dongle, you want to use the 4.4 mm balance. Otherwise, the 3.5 mm single-ended will only offer less than, or should I say, 50% of the power. Signal to noise ratio is very impressive. And this is not a surprise because we have seen this coming from very well implemented CS43198, which is rated at 130 dB. And I have tested it with some of my very sensitive hybrid IEM at 16 ohm or even below that. I am not hearing any kind of floor noises. And let's just have a look at the hardware itself, the build and the construction. Okay, as you can see here, this is the dongle itself, okay, on screen right now. Detachable Type-C. And the build itself is entirely made of CNC machine aluminum. And as noted earlier, this is the side where you can get the 4.4 mm balance and 3.5 mm single-ended here, okay. And here you have USB Type-C female with this flat ribbon type of signature cable from Colorfly, attached like this, and it seems to me very solid, no movement at all. And we also have here function button, which is this one, and this up and down volume button, which is thankfully a 100-step volume adjustment, independent. Okay, so other than that, it's pretty much very solid, and the weight itself is okay, pretty okay, not too heavy. Okay, and you see here it also offer LED display. So now let's just attach this to my phone here, which is Xiaomi Mi 90, and quickly have a look at some of the feature offered by this Colorfly. Okay, as you can see here, it is already connected. Immediately it will show the screen, and pressing this button, okay, you'll be given an option to select all this option here. Let's just go back to the first one. Okay, it comes with this, I'll just go back here. Gain level, you are given two options for gain, which is low and high. Okay, and then of course, adjustment of left and right channel. And this filter, I'll talk a bit more on this filter later on, but essentially you are given quite a lot of filter, anywhere from slow, fast, to non-oversampling, which is NOS. Okay, and let's just might as well talk about the filter itself. As usual, with many type of dongle which offer filter selection, the rule of thumb that I have always advised to people is that you need to understand the type of IEM or headphone that you use. If you are using something which is relatively natively analytical, fast and somewhat bright sounding, it is always better to use slow filter. And what is slow LL? For example, I always use this. Slow LL means that slow low latency, I believe. And there's another one, slow PC. This one I'm not too sure, but comparing between these two, I have found that my equipment, especially the one which is relatively sparkly and brighter sounding, fares better with slow LL. And when I use something which is a bit warmer sounding, I always use fast or even just no oversampling. Then it is suitable. The change that it implement is pretty much on the way it handle the pace and the rhythm itself, the decay stage of how crisp or how smooth you want it to be. So this is something which you need to try on your own, okay? And let's just go back, continue with the rest of the feature. So I have already talked about filter, and you can also toggle this M2 with this SPDIF, okay? If you need to attach it to an external DAC, okay? And this hatch depop is essentially another element or feature to help with, mitigation of noise floor. If you having a very super sensitive IEM, something perhaps like, Campfire Andromeda or something like that, you probably would want to use that if you are hearing any kind of popping noises, okay? And display brightness, of course, display rotation, you can rotate the screen. And then of course here we have I think some sort of a gaming mode or something like that, which I didn't try, I'll be honest with you on that. And then of course the last one would be, okay, that's it. Pretty much those are some of the feature. Very important and usable feature, which I think very useful on, on a dongle. So on feature alone, this thing is already a winner. Before I proceed with that, let's just quickly have a look what makes this CDA-M2 special as compared to the rest of the Cirrus Logic CS43198. As you can see here, with a bit of engineering side on Colorfly, you can clearly see that, the diagram here. It is separated into two, just like Aune Yuki, which I reviewed recently, and perhaps even similar to Luxury&Precision W2, which is also CS43198. It has two separate segregation between the digital stage and the analog stage, which means that unlike some other CS43198, this M2 offer this dedicated operational amplifier, dual mono, which operates separately on dedicated powers, okay, fed from this USB type C here. And the digital stage, which process the sound itself, okay, is powered separately. So as a result of that, it will behave slightly different from the rest of CS43198. The tuning for this M2, gladly, I would just simply say, just like many other great top-rated dongle in Dongle Madness, okay, this is neutral, transparent, highly analytical, exceedingly analytical, in fact, and I would even say that, regardless of what type of partners you attach it to. For example, I spend quite a lot of time using this Kinera Idun Golden here, my reference for neutral IEM. When I attach this Kinera Idun Golden to this Colorfly CDA-M2 on the 4.4mm balance port, the sort of sound that I'm hearing is something which I would consider as transparent, uncolored, neutral, does not indicate any kind of boosting, okay, be it on the mid-range, the lower frequency or the higher frequency. So this is the same sort of behavior which is consistent, which I have heard from the likes of Luxury&Precision W2 or even Colorfly CDA-M1 and even M1P, okay. But the differences would be perhaps on the way they present the sound timbre itself. For example, this Colorfly CDA-M2, I'm just going to put it up front because just recently I reviewed the Colorfly CDA-M1P. The approach for this CDA-M2 is a bit more focused on technical. Okay, if you reflect back and if you have watched my review on Colorfly CDA-M1P, okay, that is something which I would consider a bit more focused on being musical rather than technical. And this one is a bit more technical rather than musical. So this is the way I look at it, okay, if I were to trace back from Colorfly CDA-M1, which was released probably like 2 years ago, the same sort of approach is being implemented here with some refinement here and there, which I will show you later. Okay, so let's talk about some of the technical aspect. Other than being highly resolving, transparent, superb with separation, layering, and everything that you can think of when it comes to technical aspect, this is also, rest assured, because of that discrete amplification, it offers the kind of sound which I consider as being wide and open sounding. As for the usage itself, and this is another element which really surprises me pleasantly, using this Colorfly CDA-M2 attached to my phone here, which is Xiaomi Mi 90, 4000 mAh of battery, driving this Timbre Zero IEM here on 4.4mm balance port, I was able to get a respectable, very respectable 12 hours, despite this Colorfly CDA-M2 having a discrete amplification stage, and it was running on high gain mode. So that is definitely very impressive. And talking about power, how does it drive, different type of IEM or even headphones? So you see here, I have with me here Sennheiser HD 600 and even here Hi-Fi-Man Sundara. So let's just take an example with this HD 600 here. When I attach this HD 600 to this Colorfly CDA-M2 from the 4.4mm balance port, because this is the one that offers 100% power, okay, I was able to get a proper listening loudness at 58 out of 100 on the independent volume adjustment when using this phone here, which is Sony Xperia 1 USB 3.0 running Tidal in exclusive mode, maximum volume here and adjustment only done here. And once the loudness has been achieved, the sort of sound which I am hearing from this Sennheiser HD 600 is something which I would consider as full of authority. It does not sound weak, it does not sound soft or anything like that. The dynamic presentation is simply usable and amazing, in fact, because the only thing that perhaps can compete with this Colorfly CDA-M2 when it comes to that sound presentation, this Sennheiser HD 600 still sound better when attached to something which is a lot more powerful, like this Person Audio Playmate 2, which offer 3000 milliwatt of power. Of course, the difference of power is so much that you can literally hear it. But if I am not comparing side by side, this M2 is more than capable to drive these two very difficult to drive headphones. And lastly, synergy. I have already mentioned that it was able to pair very well with this Kinera Idun Golden, which is relatively neutral, uncolored, and it also pairs exceedingly well, especially with these two magnetic planar of mine, Hidis MP145, and also this, my favorite here, Sivga Nightingale, okay? And of course, I already mentioned this single DD of Timbre Zero, and yes, this another single DD, sensitive single DD of Final Audio A5000, and last but not least, micro DD of Etimotic ER2XR. And the reason that I'm saying that it synergizes really well, again, it boils down to this Colorfly CDA-M2 being neutral and transparent. Because it does not add any kind of coloration, it does not impart any kind of influence over the sound. What I am hearing is the sort of sound which I expect from all these different type of IEM. And let me just remind you, whatever that you're seeing on screen right now is not all of them, okay? I have tested close to 160 dongles for the last 3 years since Dongle Madness started. I can only fit this much into this particular screen. Okay, for your information, for ease of understanding, I have placed there Colorfly series, 3 Colorfly dongles side by side so that you get an idea where does this Colorfly CDA-M2 stands in the whole picture. And also, the rest of the dongle listed there are all dual Cirrus Logic CS43198. Okay, so let me just bring up this particular, element which I think could be interesting. You would notice that Colorfly CDA-M1 was already great with the way it presents the sound. So the score there is pretty much like 9, 8, 8, 10. Okay, but okay, if you were to compare this with Luxury&Precision W2, which was released about the same time as Colorfly CDA-M1, even earlier, that was probably the very first CS43198, which I would consider as top-notch, okay? And the score for W2 is 10, 8 at 10. And pretty much when I compare M2 with W2, I am hearing similar, if not identical sort of sound presentation. You can clearly see there, as compared with the rest of the three Colorfly CDA series, this CDA-M2 is pretty much identical when it comes to Timbre Signature to CDA-M1, and a lot different when compared against the CDA-M1P, which I have already mentioned earlier, being a lot more musical and smooth sounding. So with the rest of the competition, you can clearly see there that, M2 pretty much right there in the middle, alongside the dongles like Duo 4X, which I reviewed recently, KA5, MR2, or even X Duo Link 2 Balance. I'm gonna be repeating this over and over again, perhaps like a broken radio by now. We're gonna see a lot more of this Cirrus Logic CS43198 being released, especially this year. Okay, just brace for it, okay? This M2 is just one of them. I have already mentioned that this is the third dongle which I reviewed this year, and all of them are CS43198. And the reason is very simple. The way I look at it, okay, the improvement of quality, manufacturing and tuning for this CS43198 has been improved quite a lot, to a point that it is a proven formula which you only need to implement. And in this example, Colorfly really know what they're doing. Okay, they really know how to tune things properly. And on top of it, the X factor for this CS43198 over the rest of the competition so far is that the feature it offers. Okay, on top of being exceedingly amazing with the sound performance itself, so you're gonna get a lot of feature. I especially love the feature when I use the LED here, which you can control directly. So that is something definitely I would say that worth the price being paid for this very well built Colorfly CDA-M2.